Hello everybody, and welcome to ZookaMan Streaming, where I get you and your replays to be casted for my entertainment, and hopefully to help you improve a little bit as well. I'm your host, ZookaMan, and we're going to be going into a PvT. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our two players. Starting off, we have RaxCity, spawning in the upper right-hand side of the map Yonsuo Ladder Edition. And his opponent, on the opposite side of the map, in the blue, going to be going for Reactor before Barracks. We see Tim as the blue Terran player. So, that's kind of an interesting start to go off into the game. Refinery. And no barracks supply depot. So we're going to go over and look a little bit here at our Protoss player, who's doing a little bit more standard things, going for that pylon, stuff that you normally see, as opposed to a really quick reactor into supply depot. But maybe this means we're going to see a lot of barracks or a early factory. It's very possible, even if I don't necessarily feel like it is likely. So we're gonna have to see exactly what Tim's plan is this game. Meanwhile, RaxCity going up on his gateway, gonna be grabbing his gases, double gases I believe, as well. So we see our Protoss player going a little bit more standard in his timings. Meanwhile, Terran player just now getting his barracks down. And to talk about the matchup a little bit, excluding the fact that this reactor came down, normally what you're seeing is a barracks into a orbital standard openings, but then you'll see into factory tech. I know is very popular right now with widow mines being buffed lately, and I do know that some paths up to a starport. In my opinion, probably you're going to be seeing Tim go towards a starport tech because he does have that refinery. Now on our Protoss side of things, we could see a lot of different builds coming out from him. He is going for that standard double gas, one gateway, cybernetics core, probably going to be going into a fast expansion. And yes, we are going to be seeing a fast factory. We'll have to see if he's actually going into starport, or if he decided that he's just going to go into, like, siege tanks, or possibly Widowmine production, or something along the lines of that. He could also be attempting to do a mech play, which could explain a little bit of the refinery, but it's still a bit odd there. Protoss going to be going up on his natural expansion. Handy dandy. No problems with that. He's going to actually get an SCV kill there, but not going to really stunt the factory in its glory. Meanwhile, we're going to be seeing Tim go for a reactor on his factory and drop down another factory. So this is indicative of a more mech-centric play, especially with grabbing that second refinery. And we did see him almost start going for those Hellions before deciding he wants the refinery. So it's safe to assume that he's probably going into mech play. RaxCity, on the other hand, has kind of a conflicting tech path here, going for a robotics facility and a Twilight Council really quickly there, which is a very kind of an interesting tech path. I would say that what we're seeing from this is a fast blink play, possibly a fast... I would say fast blink play because of getting a observer for the over the wall, but I suppose you don't need that with a Mothership Core. But instead, we're going to be seeing a warp prism. A warp prism. So we're going to see warp prism in a dark shrine. Against a mech Terran who's going for Hellions. So one Hellion is out on the way for our Terran player, going to be going out and scouting out a little bit, but RaxCity does have that Warp Prism out already, and the Hellions are, to their credit, going to be able to scout it. Now, Dark Shrine isn't finished yet. It has about 20-30 seconds here before completion. Therefore, RaxCity needs to wait till that finishes to be able to warp in anything. So having it over like this is kind of inefficient, especially because if a Widow Mine can just, you know, plant underneath the... Oh! Yeah! Yeah! There goes that Warp Prism. Widow Mines counter Warp Prisms, guys. Tell your friends. So, RaxCity, in response to his Warp Prism dying, is going to go and put down a third base. Because that is the natural response indeed. Not really any units on his side of the field. We do have a few Stalkers, a Mothership Core, and a Observer overhead in his main base. But it's a tad bit greedy as a Protoss player to go for another expansion, an additional expansion over that natural expansion with so few units. Yeah, he has Phonon Overcharge, but if the Terran player, for instance, decides to move out with his army, and this army especially, Stalkers will be able to take care of the Hellions, but if the Hellbats get, or not the Hellbats, the Widow Mines get up on the Stalkers, or even into the Mineral Lines, a lot of damage could be done, and he wouldn't really be able to stop it very well. So here it looks like we're going to be seeing a run-by coming into the main base. And it looks like exactly what is going to happen is that we're going to be losing a lot of units here. A couple of Dark Templar are going to be warped in to help clear away the army, and honestly, that's a pretty decent choice. Oh, whoa, they're wrecking back home as well. So, they kind of all end each other. So, Dark Templars are working out in the back of the main base, and that is going to be that, I suppose. So, from a learning perspective, what can we learn from this game, folks? Well, one point I'd like to make here is the expansion patterns. I know I pointed this out a little bit earlier, but our Protoss player grabbed his first base, got his natural fairly early, and then moved into a third base before he really had the units in order to defend himself. So that when this attack came in with the Widow Mines and the Hellions, he was not as prepared as he should have been. He eventually, to a point, repel his opponent? Yes. But if it had been something like a bio push as opposed to this kind of half and half Widow Mine Hellion push, he would have been in a bad position. Also on the Protoss side of things, before I go to the Terran side of things, on the Protoss side of on the other side of the Protoss side of things is the tech. He got a Twilight Council and a robotics facility fairly early on into the game, and while he didn't really utilize the robotics facility besides getting that Warp Prism out, honestly, from a Blink All-In, or not Blink All-In, sorry, Dark Templar All-In standpoint is not necessarily necessary. So, he kind of had to spend the extra money, the extra resources, the 200, 100, of the robotics facility when it wasn't necessarily needed. I suppose you could argue that the Observer could be used for the Widow Line detection, but in such a all-in kind of style, that's not exactly optimal. Now looking out on this Terran side of things, first of all, he did go for a kind of a strange composition, going for the double reactor on his factory. His gas ended up coming up really early, which was kind of strange, so that he had a lot of excess gas, and I'm assuming that's kind of what made him want to build the factory. He might have had the idea first, but once he had the gas, it was kind of like he was trying to throw it away as quickly as he possibly could, which is why he built the additional factory. I think that could be much better saved for when you... for later, after you get your barracks, after you get your supply depot, when you normally do it as a Terran player, which is usually right after your barracks drops down. Another point that I'd like to point out from Tim is that he doesn't really have a composition. He had 2 units that he kind of wanted to use, and kind of stuck with them. And in an early game like this, yeah, it's not really a big deal, in a low-level game at that. However, it is something that could be improved in Tim's play. So thank you guys all for joining me. This has been ZookaMan, coming at you with an amateur cast. If you'd like to join, have replay for the next one, go ahead and give it to my email that I'm going to put in the description. If you enjoyed my video, please like, comment, subscribe, and give it out to other folks. I'm sure you guys have heard the drill before. And I think that's going to be all, folks. I'll see you on the next cast.